Hello and welcome to Who's On Next, the podcast that's finally back after a year-long hiatus. Today I have with me a man who's been the voice of Bowser for over 13 years, on top of having several appearances in shows such as One Piece, Ranking of Kings, and Attack on Titan the final season. It is Kenny James.
Hey, and it's closer to 19 years.
19. Yeah. I was seeing inconsistent numbers. I was seeing some say 15. I was seeing some say around 15.
I'm pretty sure that the first title I recorded for that we actually did the recording session in, I swear it was 2004, but it could have been early 2005 because that game didn't release until the third or fourth quarter of 2005. So it may have been 2005, but
because
it's still in that neighborhood.
The current list I'm seeing is, I think Mario Strikers is the first one.
Yeah, Super Mario Strikers. And then my second session was Mario Kart Wii and Galaxy. We did both of them at the same time. So I'm going to be working. So
this is a thing now.
It's a thing, you know. Yeah, I mean, the first game was on the GameCube. And then, you know, the Wii was ready to go shortly after that. So we started recording stuff for the Wii, like right after they cast me.
So how have you been doing today?
I'm all right, except like I said earlier, my voice sounds Frenchy. It's weird.
I mean, you sound fine to me without hearing it.
You don't know what my normal speaking voice sounds like.
Normally, I sound like this.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's just rough night. I didn't sleep right. Had weird dreams. It's just weird. I mean, there were things about Area 51 and aliens and there was what else was it? Oh, see how you start to forget, but it was just not good sleep.
Oh, yeah, I woke up like 3 times last night.
I woke up about 50 times, and every time I woke up, it was one of those situations where you think, I haven't been sleeping at all, but you were asleep. You just didn't feel like you were asleep.
You know, I've always had this thing where I don't have a dream journal, but I have like a notepad on my computer where if my dream is like weirdly vivid enough and I remember it well enough, I'll like get on the computer and like write down like the basic gist of what I remember. Because I've had some weird dreams before.
Oh, I'm right there. Most of the time I don't remember them, you know, or it'll be like a shadow, and I'm like, oh, wait, what was that? And then I can't get a hold of it. But sometimes I wake up and I'm like, told my wife, I said, we were at like Area 51 or something, and there were these alien ships flying overhead. And everybody there was just like it was normal. You know, it's like, oh, there's another slow mover. You know, and I was all like, what is going on?
I think like a dream I've always had this very distinct memory of, just because I remember the visual of it, was I remember it was like a wintry kind of like London-ish kind of city, and if you looked up into the sky, there was like an upside down city that like reflected where you were. And I've always had that vivid memory because it was just this really cool image that I had in my head. And that's like the only thing I remember about that dream, is just this
it
like
turns out that all along you were Doctor Strange.
Yeah, it was kind of like that.
Yeah.
It was a lot like that, actually. Was that kind of image.
That's the only thing I could think of, and I have never even seen the movie. So.
Or I guess like Inception, when Inception, when like the city starts like flipping upside down.
Yeah. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I haven't seen that either. So I'm not huge on movies unless it's stuff that I know. I'm one of those people that watches the same movies over and over.
I was actually talking to somebody about this yesterday, where like I don't really go to the theater anymore because I think the pandemic just got to me so much that now I just wait for streaming stuff now.
I just hate theaters. I don't know. People are rude, you know. I absolutely cannot stand the sound of crinkling plastic. It's one of those things. It's an actual condition or something where certain noises just bug you to the point you want to shoot somebody in the face.
Like a plastic water bottle crinkling kind of thing?
That kind of thing. Chip bags, you know, or something like that. Now, if it's me doing it, I don't really hear it. But if it's somebody else doing it, I'm all like, could you get your hand out of that bag? Oh my God. That and the sound of somebody crunching, I can't stand it. I hate it. But so I don't like going to theaters. And besides that, I mean, the screen's too damn big. You know, it's we're sitting in our little living room area where our main TV is. We're sitting about 7 feet from the TV, and it's 75 inches. That's as big as the theater needs to be.
It could, like, for me, it's just not convenient anymore for me.
No.
Like, now it's just because again, the pandemic conditioned me so much because everything was going to streaming instantly because of that. Yeah. So now I'm just at a point where I'm like, I just don't want to waste the time. Like, drive 30 minutes, pay $15 to sit in a theater for 2.5 hours, and then drive another like half hour to go home. Like.
My wife will go, do you want to go see that? And I'm like, I'm not going to a theater. I said it'll be out on Blu-ray in 3 months.
Well, and sometimes it's cheaper to just buy it than going to see it at the theater.
Oh, sure, because, you know, concessions are just extremely expensive. But she's like, but you can order a pizza and you can drink a glass of wine and stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm getting more interested, but no. You know, I can eat pizza and drink wine at home. So, anyway, back to me.
All right, so
we were talking about me.
So I guess what is it that got you started in voiceover?
Oh man, you know, I just wanted to goof around with it. You know, I was one of those kids that got in trouble probably more often for opening my mouth in class. You know, either doing impersonations of cartoon characters or just talking, you know, when you're not supposed to be. And it wasn't until I was nearly 40 that I started thinking about doing it for real. And one time in band camp, one time I was in the Navy and had a guy, we were moving torpedoes and we were between weapons, kind of lounging around in the torpedo room, and I was goofing on stuff, and a friend of mine went, man, you're too weird to be human. He goes, you should be a cartoon character. And I was all like, oh, that's the coolest thing anybody's ever said to me. But and then it was still 2 decades or, you know, later before I actually did anything about it. I didn't start acting until I was 40.
Wow.
Both stage and voiceover. But I had been in a lot of bands. You know, I was a singer, so I wasn't scared of recording. I wasn't scared of being in front of people or any of that. Pardon me. Something's coming back. Let me have a big drink of water. Oh, that's better. But anyway, yeah. So I just wanted to do it. So I built a little website and I had a demo made and it was just a matter of chance that I was working at somebody's house in Bainbridge Island, Washington. I was a propane service tech, and she heard me talking about voice stuff with my coworker, and she was like, "Oh, you do voice work?" And I said, "I'm trying to get started." And next thing out of her face was, "Do you have a demo?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." Because if I hadn't had that demo ready to go, probably wouldn't be sitting here right now. So remember, boys and girls, get a demo made. It may seem old-fashioned now, but you gotta have it. But I sent it off. Well, I gave it to her. She sent it over to Bad Animals in Seattle. They started sending me auditions, and when they recast Bowser, I auditioned for it and nailed it. So that's how that story went.
What was the audition process? Because Bowser doesn't speak very much. So I'm curious, what the process was.
Good question. And you know, I've said it before, you know, bunches of times, but there's always people that haven't heard the story. But they sent me some auditions for like Sly Cooper 3, stuff like that, where I didn't get any of them. I probably auditioned for 5 different characters, and didn't get any of them. And I was like, well, I stink. I need more practice. Whatever, it's fine. They send the Bowser one, and I was all like, oh, Bowser, like the video game? And that first thing I thought was, he doesn't even talk. Because I hadn't played any Nintendo games for a really long time. And this was shortly after Sunshine came out. And that was Scott Burns. And they were recasting, and they sent me, so here was the process. They sent me the script from Sunshine, or at least his lines, and his raw tracks, outtakes and all. Just almost like they were just rolling.
So no pitching was added to it or anything. It was just like the raw.
No, it was just Scott. And so I assumed, I didn't even email them to ask them if they wanted voice match or what. I just assumed they wanted a voice match. Why would you send me his files if you didn't want a voice match? So I did my best Scott Burns, man. I was, Mario, how dare you disrupt my family vacation, and blah, 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 blah. And a couple of weeks later, I got an email that said, you got the job. And I was like, what? What job? I don't know what you're talking about. So, and the rest, as they say, is at least 20 years, almost 20 years worth of history.
Because I remember I think it was like Jen Taylor as Peach and Scott Burns were both recast. And I don't think there was ever like an official reason given for why they were recast.
Well, and you're right. It was pretty close to the same time because Samantha Kelly, I call her Sammy most of the time. She has been Peach almost as long as I've been Bowser. She was cast shortly after I was. But I am, the internet's the internet. The only thing I've ever found that seemed probably accurate was that it was a union issue. Nintendo records non-union, and Scott was union. And the union apparently gave him an ultimatum, according to the internet, that's, leave the union or stop working with Nintendo. So he chose the union.
So, I remember there was a rumor several years ago, because I think with like Sonic Generations, they were going to have like 3 Sonics in it originally, and supposedly Ryan Drummond was asked to come back, and I think they said that he would have had to have left his union to be in it, and he told them no.
Yeah, that's, you got to understand that. I mean, Scott's in the Seattle area, but especially with people in L.A., they're not going to bail on the union. That's their bread and butter, man. That's a union town. There's plenty of non-union work out there, but if you're in Hollywood, you're probably going to need to be union. But me, I live in Texas, so...
I think I know some actors like go under pseudonyms sometimes, like to like sneak around the ways of doing things, or they like go under like false names.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways to work with the unions, or the union. It used to be unions, now it's all one big happy family. But you can do, as far as I know, you can do non-union work, but you still have to pay your dues. You got to pay on it, and whether it's union work or not. But I don't know because I've never been in the union, so. But I don't care, because anime is non-union work too, so it all works out for me. I'm just trying to be happy, man. I just want to get some Crunchyroll stuff going.
I guess another thing I'm curious about, because you said, like, because Scott Burns was located in Seattle. Mm-hmm. I think, and you said you're located in Texas, I think Martinet is in California, if I remember correctly.
Charles started off in, like, San Francisco, but he lives in Amsterdam, I think, now, so...
Yeah, I guess it's... I'm curious...
Last time I talked to him, he was still in Amsterdam, so...
Yeah, I guess I'm curious, because I'm like, how does recording processes for those games work with everyone spread out? Because I don't usually hear about productions for games where the actors are so spread out.
Sammy is in Seattle. I used to live across the Sound from Seattle, so it was only an hour ferry ride and a short walk for me to go to the studio. But they, this last time that I went in there, they had me fly. And, Charles obviously has to do that too, but they like to have us in studio, not at a satellite, or some other studio somewhere. So they partially reimbursed me for travel and lodging, and then we did the sessions, and then I came back home. So
okay, so it's not like remote recording kind of thing that they do.
No, they like to have you up close and personal, which kind of makes sense. I think it's a lot easier to work with somebody when there's on the other side of the glass rather than just a noise on a set of cans. So I much prefer working with people during 2020 and slightly beyond. It's like all the stuff at Crunchyroll, it got so weird because there was nobody at the studios. There was a producer on duty, and that was pretty much the only person in the building. And I only lived about 12, 15 minutes from that studio before they moved to a new one. And they were trying to get me to record at home, and I hated it. And then I had problems with my Apollo twin not wanting to talk to Google Chrome through Windows 10. My microphone's on. Windows 10 says my microphone's on, but nothing's coming out. So it was just a battle of software. And I was like, why can't I just go to the studio? I go, I live like 12 minutes from there. They go, oh, you could do that. I'm like, awesome. I said, let me go. So you'd go there and text the producer and say, I'm here. And they'd be like, stay in your car until I get hold of you. And then they go, okay, you can come in now. And there's a camera, and they'd see you at the door. So the door would click. You open the door, shut the door, follow like we'd never been in the studio before. Follow these signs to Studio A, where you will be working with Mike in Studio A, and then at 2:00 you will be in Studio D with somebody else. But there was nobody there. They were all at home. It was the oddest, weirdest thing to go into the studio and there's nobody there, not an engineer, no director, just empty room. And you put on headphones and go, hey, is there anybody here? Hey, how's it going? Oh, wow. Okay, let's work.
So could you not see anyone either?
No. All you got, you got two monitors because you're doing ADR. So you've got script on one monitor, and then you've got the animation on the second monitor. And you're just trying to kind of chameleonize back and forth, trying to look at both screens at the same time. Crazy. It's a lot of fun, though. I like anime. It's what I call the Forrest Gump box of chocolates of voice acting. Because, you never know what you're going to get. And it's true. I walk in there, I might know what show it is, but I don't know what character or what is it. What am I going to be doing? They'll let me know when I get there.
I guess, what's it been like doing that for the last few years? Because for the most part, you were just doing Bowser for a long time.
Yeah.
I think in the last 4 years, you've been doing a lot more anime work.
No, it's less than that. I think we moved here September of 19, so yeah, less than 4 years. But it's been a hoot, man. I love when I started doing conventions. It was meeting anime voice actors, and they're all kooky in their own sort of way, and I got along with them real good. So I was like, man, I'm gonna move to Dallas, do anime. And they were like, you should. And I'm gonna. And they go, good, do it. One time I went home and went, honey, what do you think about selling the house and moving to Dallas? And she was like, okay. So we did. And then right after we got here, that's when COVID popped. Yeah, I was.
Ugh.
Well, the first thing that happened was I left her, home to go to Houston for a convention, and the weather went violent, and I couldn't get home because they had a ground stop at DFW, so no planes going anywhere. And there turned out to be like was either 6 or 9 tornadoes in the area that night, and one of them was downtown downtown Dallas, and one of my friends here, Chris Rager from Dragon Ball, he goes, I was born and raised in Dallas, and he goes, never seen a tornado hit Dallas proper. And I go, yeah, global warming's not a real thing though. Climate change isn't real.
Oh, here we were dealing where I live on the East Coast. We were dealing with it was getting warm, and then for the last 2 weeks, it dipped to like -30 some nights.
Oh,
No, and only now is it like 70 something degrees again. But for like 2 weeks straight, it was like just around 35 to like 55 degrees on regular.
yeah, our weather's gotten better, but we did have a couple of tornadoes a couple of days ago in the area. And then what? Yesterday or the night before that or whatever, Mississippi, there's like 23 people got killed
Oh my
by 2
god!
tornadoes or whatever. So
Yeah, I used to live in
Crazy.
Illinois. I used to live in Illinois, which was like tornado central, like Midwest.
yeah, the zone, commonly known as Tornado Alley, has moved further south because I don't think there used to be this many tornadoes in North Texas, but now every time they go, well, we've got a possibility of some severe weather, I'm going, tornado time. Let's go into the walk-in closet and hide.
Yeah,
When I did that Houston thing, I called my wife from the airport. I go, they turned us around. We almost took off, and they told us to turn around and go back to the gate. And she goes, well, I'm in the bathtub with the cat because the TV people told her to get to a safe spot. So she was like, so I'm laying in a cold bathtub with the cat. And I was like, well, okay, hopefully, you don't wind up in Kansas because that's not where my flight's supposed to go. Yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, no, I guess how was it having to adapt to the process of doing anime after doing games for so long?
Um, ADR, I walked in like super headstrong, like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I just walked in acting like I know what I was doing. So, because you know how ADR works, they'll show you the scene with the Japanese, the sound effect, everything's done on their end. It's a completed show. If you watch the scene, it's got music, sound effects, Japanese voiceover, all that jazz, but the engineers put in beeps so that you know where to start talking. And so you watch it in Japanese, get a feel for it, and then they immediately roll on it, and you've got to do the English script. So it's 3 beeps and then an imaginary 4th beep. That's where you start talking. And hopefully your beginning and ending flaps match. The internals aren't quite as important depending on, how it was written. But I walked in there and I was all like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I got this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, wait, what? I was like a little cocky, but it worked, And I think the very first thing I did that they pushed record on, I think I did it in 1 take, and I was all like, yeah, 1 take, 1 and done, nailed it, But no, there's been lots of times where it don't work out so good for me. I was doing Spy Family, and there's this tennis match, and there's this really high energy announcer, like tennis has an announcer, and super high energy, and it was way up here, and my voice kept cracking. And it was just humiliating. I was like, I can't believe this is happening to me. I go, the mountain cedar is killing me. It's allergies, and they're like, no, I get it. He goes, we've all been there. We'll get through it. Because in that episode, I had more lines than the stars. So I was like, man, this is tough. There's like 40, I had like 40 lines, in a half-hour show or something. Or no, I think it was more than that. It doesn't matter. It was a lot. And then had to bring me in for a second episode where there was some additional tennis going on. But I was like, this is not going my way. I should have started it in a lower register, but the Japanese actor sounded so freaking out of control that I was like, all right, I'll do that. Dummy. I should have just toned it down a little bit, depending on what the director says, though. But Crunchy, bunch of good directors, just great people to work with. The engineers are awesome, too. Guys are so fast because sometimes you'll record something and I'll be all like, felt a little bit too long. I'm kind of a armchair director. I go, it felt like it was too long. And they're like, well, let's check it. And then they'll be, okay, can you slide that to the left a little bit and maybe squish it just a bit? And they'll do that. And then they'll look at it and they go, it works. We're good. I'll be like, all right. But they're fast.
I guess what's like with Bowser, what is the main process for doing it? Because I don't recall if there is a Japanese actor for Bowser. I don't think there is.
There's a what?
Is there like a Japanese voice actor for Bowser?
No, I'm Global Bowser for the games.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't know if they were using you globally or if there was like someone else doing it in different. Because I know they do that sometimes with creature characters. They'll have like another actor do it.
But with Nintendo, it's the mains are Americans. Me and Charles and Sammy, and what's her name? Oh, I'm gonna feel so bad. I hope she doesn't hear this. I just met her for the first time. She plays Bowser Jr.
Oh, dang it.
Katie, I think it's Katie. I just don't know her last name. Anyway, she was very nice. She was freaked out. She goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're here." And she was like, "Can I get a picture with you?" And I was like, "Wow, man." I go, "But you're one of us. Calm down."
Oh, I've talked to people who have been on shows where they're like best friends with the lead character or the lead actor, and they like didn't meet for like 4 years. Or something like that.
Yeah. I didn't meet Charles for the first time until I think we were doing Bowser's Inside Story, and I was coming out of the studio. I was wrapping up, and he was coming in from the airport to start his session. And I was like, "Oh, hi, I'm Kenny. I'm Bowser now." And he's like, "How you doing?" And then they were like, "Hey, Charles, we got you sushi." And I was like, "Great." I was like, "You know what I got? I got lounge snacks." That's what they were like, "Well, you know where the lounge is. There's some stuff in there, and there's tea, and whatever's in the fridge or whatever. So help yourself." And then they're like, "Charles, we got you sushi." Yeah, Charles is a big fan of Japanese food.
I know. I've seen the videos because he travels a lot.
Oh man, does he travel? Like way more than I would ever want to, probably, because he's always moving. Got in a car one time to go to the airport, and I said, "You going home?" And he goes, "Nope, going to Kuwait."
Oh my God.
And I was like, "Why?" And he goes, "For a show." And I was like, "No kidding." And then, a week later on his Instagram, there's a picture of a guy doing the Mario woohoo pose, but he's wearing, those stark white robes, with the headband and, looked like a shake, it shake your booty. And I was just blown away. I was like, wow, man, we're like this global thing that I didn't even consider it, Kuwait. I want to go to Dubai, though. That would be great. Actually, I'd go to Kuwait. I'd go just about anywhere.
I've always wanted to go to Austria. That's always been like my big travel place.
Cool. Germany, Austria, Europe in general, I think, because it's so old. It's not like the United States where it's like, wow, look at us. We're over 200 years old. And these guys over in Europe are going, I raise your 200 and toss in 2,000.
Well, it's
How
like
about that?
the amount of things in Europe that are still there that
Mm-hmm.
are like 2,000-year-old
Yeah,
buildings.
it's
Things like,
nuts. Oh yeah, but we've got stuff that's like, well, this building was built in 1898, and everybody's ooh,
and then you go to Ireland and you see a castle built in like 400 AD,
yeah, built,
like
yeah.
that's somehow
Built
still
before God
there.
was a boy.
Well, it's like I think it's like I mean, Rome is like another place I've always wanted to go, and there's stuff there
Yeah,
that's like over 2,000 years old that's
yeah.
still there.
Egypt, Greece, all these ancient civilizations. You know, it's really cool.
Oh, yeah, no, I've always been much more fascinated with the ancient world than like 200 years ago kind of
I
stuff.
haven't done much international stuff. I went to Canada, which is, you know, I even told the Canadians, I said, this is like being at home, only with nicer people. And then last year, I went to Chile, went to Santiago, Chile, and that was crazy.
Well, there's some pretty old stuff there too.
Yeah, well, I didn't really tourist much. For one, I don't speak the language. I had an interpreter, and she told me, she was like, "Oh, when we're at the show, don't go outside. Don't wander around outside." And that was all like, okay. It was, I guess, dangerous to be wandering around outside. So
Oh,
I
I
was
thought
like,
there
okay,
was
I
going to be
won't.
a specification of like, don't do this, don't do this.
No, it was just like, no, don't walk around outside while we're at the show. It's not a great area of the city. So if I was at my hotel, she didn't say I couldn't go outside there, but I still didn't. I just, you know, turn on Google Translate and sit at the bar and have a glass of wine and, you know, talk to my phone so it can talk to the bartender because her English was terrible. Her English was probably worse than my Spanish. And I don't speak Spanish. So,
I think it was I forget where I was traveling, but I hate because there's been times where I've traveled just in the United States and I'll be in like the place I like where I'm staying, the B&B or the hotel, and I'll literally be told by the hotel person or the person that owns the B&B, "Oh, by the way, don't walk around this neighborhood after like 6." Like don't walk around this neighborhood
yeah,
after like 6 or 7 o'clock. I'm like,
you're gonna get shivved.
oh my God, there was a place I stayed in Atlanta for a convention a few years ago, and it was like the shittiest neighborhood I think I've ever stayed in. It was the windows had like no soundproofing, so you could literally hear like everybody right outside the window.
Wow.
And there were people literally like talking and driving loud cars and like yelling at like 2 a.m. outside the
Yeah.
B&B, and it was like you couldn't sleep. Like you could not sleep.
I cannot stand a noisy hotel, man. I don't like staying in hotels to begin with, but noisy hotels it's the worst. I was gonna say something. Oh, I was gonna say something about Atlanta. I've been to Atlanta a couple of times. One time for MomoCon.
Yep, that's my go-to. Me and my buddies go to that convention pretty much every
Yeah,
year.
it's gotten big. It's gotten bigger since I was there. The year after I was there, they were supposed to double the floor space that they were going to be using
Yeah,
in the
it
convention
was the
center.
COVID year. They were gonna.
Yeah, and it was the COVID year. They had to shut it down or whatever. So I was all like, "Oh man, poor guys."
Yeah,
But
they had it
good
last
show
year,
though.
and now they have the big venue, and it is
No, it's huge.
it is terrifyingly large now.
I'm going to a big one this coming weekend. I got to leave in. Well, I don't even know what today is. Today's Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I got to leave in 4 days. Going to MegaCon Orlando. So that's supposed to be, you know, something like 130,000 people. So I'm just like, what? I better bring extra prints.
Oh yeah, no. When I went to Momo, because I was so used to the smaller venue of Momo, the smaller venue, even though it
Yeah,
was still very
it was.
large,
Yeah, it was still
like
160,000 square feet. You know,
and like 4 floors of things going on.
that's insane.
And then last year they finally had it, and they did have it. I thought they were going to have it in the smaller venue because they didn't say anything about it being in the bigger building. So when I showed up, I was like, where the hell is everybody? Like, there was nobody in the A building. And I like walked into the cafeteria area, and then I saw all the people over there. I was like, oh, they are having it in the bigger venue. And I looked down. They had a giant window you could look down into. It looked like, I can't even explain it. It looked like if you've ever been in seen a steel mill. That's how big it looked on the inside. Yeah. There were literally like people driving like 30 cars down there. Like, it was huge.
Yeah, that's a big convention center, that is. But yeah, it was a good show. They haven't had me back. I don't know, maybe I pissed somebody off. Probably not.
I know MomoCon usually does theming a lot of the time with guests. Like, they'll have 4 people from one show, and then they'll have like 4 people from another show, and then maybe like 4 or 5 random people a lot of the time at MomoCon. Usually there's theming, I notice.
The year that I was there, man, there was a lot of people, a lot of celebrity types, just tons of them. But like I say, I haven't been back. But I've got, I think I've got 4. I had a contract for 5 Fan Expo shows, and that's one of them. So I think I've got 4 of those left this year, plus a couple of other ones.
Oh, I didn't realize that you have to do contracts with conventions.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I have an agent for that, so it's the best way to go, because that way everything is spelled out. You know, I like to make them stick to their airline arrangements. You know, where they'll be all like, "Oh yeah, you'll get premium economy," and then they try to book you an economy ticket, and you're like, "Nuh-uh." I go, it's bad enough not being first class, you know, but I don't want to be in the cheap seats, you know. So, and then, you know, you get your per diem squared away and, you know, all that jazz. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I've got Orlando. I've got this one in Utah, but I can't remember what city it is. I got Fan Expo Dallas. That one, even though it's close by, it's going to be the worst because I have to drive in and out of Dallas every day. And I don't like it. Southern Fried Gaming Expo. Not sure where that is.
Sounds possibly like Oklahoma, Kentucky.
It could, yeah, it actually, it might be Alabama or Mississippi or something too. I don't know. Now I'm all like really curious. Anime Town, Utah. I don't even know. That doesn't even say where. It just says space to be announced.
That's
Gaming Expo. It's Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
Okay, cool. I'm going back to Atlanta, man. Hell yeah.
Yeah, because I know at MomoCon, I think like the biggest guest they have is Don Bluth, but he's only going to be there for like one day.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, also to be fair, he's like 85 years old. So
I know. After Atlanta, I've got Boston, Chicago, and Columbus, Ohio. Bouncing around.
And I assume that's over like the whole year. That's not over like a few months, I assume.
Yeah, I had a couple of months off between the end of January and now, so that was 2 months. And then it's going to be March 30th and then April 21st. And then I've got some time because I don't go back out until the end of the first week of June. And then end of July, and then the beginning of August. Those are back to back. Those are it looks like I'm going back to back to back.
Oh God.
Oh, that's gonna
like over a few weeks or a few days.
Yeah, a few weeks. Well, I mean, you know, conventions are usually 3 days, but like you get exceptions like MegaCon. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, because MomoCon's also that, I think.
Yeah, 4 days. But I'm going to be real busy coming up on the third quarter of this year. It looks like I'm going to be hammered just from traveling. So, But I dig it, man. Hanging out with fans and stuff, and listening to them go, "You're the voice of my childhood." It's really kind of cool.
Well, I
I really
guess it's
appreciate it.
it's like when you were talking about the thing with Charles going to Kuwait. I guess it's this thing of what is it like knowing that you have this like international,
Yeah,
like
it's
just like international appeal for this character.
it's interesting that you said that because just the other day, I was just talking to my wife, and I can't remember if it was because we were watching old videos on YouTube or something, but I was like, you know what? I go, I'm getting old, right? I'll be 60 in July, and I don't feel like it physically. I'm kind of breaking apart, but uh, I said, you know what? I've had a pretty good run. I've done some really cool shit. I go, I was on submarines during the Cold War. And I go, I've been lead singer in a ton of different bands. I have been a community theater stage actor. I did like 25 shows in 10 or 11 years, something like that. And then, now I'm an international, voice character. So I go, it's been pretty cool. And she's like, yeah, whatever. Doesn't confront her none.
Well, it's like international appeal to the point that now there's like a movie with these characters coming out in the next month.
Yeah,
like
yeah. I'm I don't know. I started off being angry, then disappointed, and then it just turned to whatever. I can't do anything about it. It's already done. But and then when the promos started coming out, the trailers, I was all like, all right, Jack Black don't sound half bad. So
Well,
I was like, good. At least he didn't massacre the character, So.
yeah. Well, I guess that was something I was wondering because I remember
Yeah.
I interviewed Jason Griffith a couple years ago, who was Sonic for a long time, and I think the movie had just come out, or the first Sonic movie had been out for a few months, and I was interested in knowing the perspective of someone who'd played that character, because
Yeah, it was a drag to find out, and I found out the hard way. It was all like, oh, hey, did you see that Nintendo Direct? I go, nah, I don't usually catch them. Oh, yeah, they announced the cast for the movie. And I was like, oh, I didn't hear about that, so obviously it's not me. So, but like I said, sounds like he did a good job. We'll see. The animation looks like it's going to be absolutely phenomenally cool looking. So, how can you miss, with something that's already animated digitally like that? All you can do is improve on it. So, it'll be good. I don't know what the plot line is. I haven't really paid any attention. I just go where I'm told, man. My agent goes, "Hey, you got this show," and I'll be like, "Okay, I'll be there. Where's my plane ticket?" So,
I guess
kind of.
back on the Bowser thing, I guess there's something
Yeah.
I've been curious about because you've played Bowser in so many different games. I guess, has there ever been like one specific one that stuck out the most in terms of the performance?
It always tends to go back to Meowser in 3D World. That Cat Bowser power up. Because I worked really hard on that, and it hurt. I mean, by the time I finished that part of the sessions, I think we did it 2 sessions, but that first session when we got around to Meowser, I stripped myself. It was like I could taste blood
Ugh.
in the back of my throat when I finished. I worked really, really hard. And then everything has to be approved by Nintendo Japan. So I come back in a couple days later to do the follow-up session, and I said, what about Meowser? And they said, well, somebody's translating an email from Japan right now. It probably has, that's probably in it. And I was like, oh, goody. And then somebody came in and said, "All right, they loved all that stuff. We can move on." It's like, yeah. So I did not want to redo it, nor did I know what I would do if I had to redo it.
Oh God.
Because I asked them, I said, "Meowser, that's hilarious." I said, "What is it? What does it mean?" So they're like, "It's a power up, and he's gonna have cat ears and a cat tail and bigger claws and whiskers and stuff, and he's gonna do cat things." And I'm like, "What do you want him to sound like?" Dude looks at me through the glass and goes, "We don't know." And I just went, "Oh, okay, got to do some of that voice actor shit." So, so I did. I went, he can't go. Not gonna work. So I went, more like Bobcat kind of style, more like a, and then rolling Bowser in with it at the same time. We didn't layer it, so I was going in all sorts of different situations for probably 2 hours. And like I said, I could taste blood. People on the internet, "Oh, Kenny James lost his voice when he did Bowser." And it's like, no, I never lost my voice. I just shredded my throat up. But 3 days later, I was on stage singing in Evita.
Oh my God.
So, I know.
I remember I've heard horror stories before. I think like before in the voiceover industry of people like literally coughing up blood because of recording sessions.
I just irritated my throat to the point where it was probably oozing a little, And you could taste it. It's that copper oxide kind of a dirty penny,
like when you
mouth
like
flavor.
If you like scratch the inside of your nose by accident and you like and then you can like taste it a little bit.
Taste it.
Yeah.
Or if you bite your tongue or your lip or something and you're like, "Ooh, that's bleeding." You can tell. But yeah, no, I didn't destroy my voice. I never lost my voice. It just sounded worse than it does right now. Right now, I sound a little bassy. It's not normally what I sound like.
I remember one story. I remember Peter Cullen, the guy who's been doing Optimus Prime for Transformers for decades. I remember he did all the creature noises for the Predator in the original Predator movie.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember...
I've heard that.
There was like a story where I think it was like one of the last recording sessions, and I think he had to do like that, like Predator screech or something. And I remember, I think he had said that messed up his voice so bad that he literally like coughed up blood for like a day after that session.
Yeah, I've screwed around with. There was one session, it was a Nintendo session, and I was all like, "Oh, you want me to do it?" And they're telling me what to do, and I was like, "Oh, I should try that breathing in." And then I gave it a shot, and I was like, "Nope, that's not going to work." I go, "It's not deep enough, first of all." I go, if I really screech inhaling, I can sound like a Black Rider ring wraith from Lord of the Rings. It's just screechy beyond belief, but it's not comfortable. Sucking air through your vocal cords backwards is not comfortable at all.
Oh, I mean, it comes full circle when you say that, because I know the ring wraiths, I think, were actually Peter Jackson's wife.
Could be.
Yeah, I think
I don't know.
I think it was like they were his wife when she had like laryngitis or something like that.
Yeah, it's that I can imitate that sound by, like I said, drawing air backwards, like, or only let it screech more, like. That's probably really loud.
And I know there's like I can do like a back of the throat thing, like the like I can do that.
Oh yeah, like pigs.
Yeah,
like a pig.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can like drag that out, it can't be like a.
Now I'm dying.
See,
it's not good for you.
When I do creature noises, it's usually creature noises are a lot easier for me if it's like a.
Oh yeah, snorting.
Like a snorty or a growl is a lot easier if you can make it like a.
Not too long ago, I did a couple of episodes of One Piece that I was the mountain god. This is giant boar, and there was a lot of snorting and that kind of shit.
Oh, so he didn't speak. It was just a...
No, he was just making a lot of noise, and they were like, I was like, oh yeah, it probably sounds a little Bowser-ish, doesn't he? Why did you pick me? Let me guess. But then they would be all like, okay, now give me some really wet snorts and stuff, you know? I'm watching the video, and I'm like, okay, let me see if I can time his nose movements, you know?
I guess, like, what, like, does... I mean, I would assume with a character like Bowser, it does get strenuous after a while.
Yeah.
But, like, have you adapted to it over the years, or is it still, hellish on your throat?
It doesn't bother me as much as it used to. When I started doing conventions, I was wearing myself out, you know, in 3 days. And now, when I get home, I don't sound as much like Barry White as I did back a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, I'd go to a convention, I'd come home, and my voice would be down. I'd be like, hey, baby. You know, my wife's all like, damn, your voice is so low. I'm like, yeah, I shredded it. You know, it's like, it's just big and floppy now. So, blah, blah.
Very, very Eeyore-y.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, come to think of it. Well, that's okay.
Thanks for noticing me.
Yeah, lost his tail again. Find his tail. Well, I know, Tigger and Winnie the Pooh, but I don't know Eeyore.
I say Pooh.
I know Jim Cummings, but yeah.
I mean, Pooh's always been a very easy voice to do, I think, for me. I mean, I know a lot of people.
Yeah, what's so weird is that, I mean, Jim does Pooh, Tigger, Darkwing Duck. He was Darkwing Duck back in the day.
Darkwing Duck is like one of my favorite characters ever. So
yeah, that was Jim Cummings. And he actually, I found out one day I was sitting at the bar having a couple drinks with him, and I found out that he was in The Lion King.
Oh yeah, I actually had him.
You did? Yeah, the singing part of
Jeremy Irons.
Scar's. Yeah, Scar's song.
Well, because he was also Ed the hyena, the one that just laughs.
Yeah.
I remember
the maniacal laugh.
He was at MomoCon in like 2018, and I remember I asked him if he could do it because I just wanted to know if he could still do it because I love the Ed laugh so much, and he can still do it. Like, yeah, I'm very impressed he can still do that.
The laugh is so funny, too. It was so maniacal. I mean, just out of control, weirdo laugh, you know? It's just so funny. But, yeah, he's a decent guy to talk to and stuff. And I met Billy West a few weeks ago. That was one of the guys on my list. You know, I was all like, oh, I'd like to talk to him for a little bit. So I got to meet him. That was fun. We talked about Zoidberg.
Oh, I have like an impression list I just have like for fun, like just of characters I could do, and I think most of the Futurama characters I can do fairly decently. I feel. Because I remember Futurama, I had a period where I think when I discovered Futurama, I binged the whole thing in like 2 months. Yeah. Which I don't do very often. And so because of that, I just got really used to hearing a lot of those voices. And I think just one day I was doing Farnsworth to myself, and I just kind of sat down and I'm like, I want to see how many of these I can actually try and do. And the only one I can't do decently is Fry.
You know,
well, and Bender.
For
those
me,
two
it's
I can't do.
My Zoidberg is not very good. But now I can't think of a name.
Farnsworth is another one. I think that was the first one I tried.
What's his doodle that played Hermes?
Oh, Phil Lamar.
Phil Lamar. I walked up behind him one time. I think it was in Indianapolis. And he was on it. He was looking at his phone, and I walked up behind him and went, "Good news, everyone." And he turned around real fast and looked at me, and I went, "What?" And he's all like, "Have you ever met Billy?" I go, "No, not yet." I go, "But I hope to, you know." It was really slow convention. He was just standing around. So I was, good news, everyone.
Oh my.
Oh my. Yeah. Fight my shiny metal ass.
That's one I don't know anybody can do well. I've never
I've
Bender
gotten
is
better,
so
but that's the only line that I can say.
Bender
It
is
sounds right.
I can't do Bender because if I try to do Bender, it turns into Marvin the Martian. I cannot do it.
No, you know what? I get that. I can hear that. It's like, yeah, I can see where it would go that way.
It's like if you're trying to do Bender, now it's turned to Pete Puma when I tried to do that.
Oh, I love Pete
I know
Puma.
that just turned into Pete Puma.
That laugh that he does, that makes me choke.
Oh,
You know, trying to do
the like that thing.
Yeah, it's not easy. But other than that, you know, oh, 3 or 4.
Oh, 3 or 4. I find it so crazy that character became so iconic, and he was only in one short.
Oh, but I mean, it was so funny with him dressed up like a lady and, you know, walking around going,
oh, it's I remember
and that little rabbit.
Yeah, the tiny the chipmunk rabbit. But I remember looking into Stan Freberg. I remember I looked into Stan Freberg, and I thought it was crazy. I found out he started doing Looney Tunes when he was like 20. Like 20 years old. And I was just so, because I found out there were a couple actors back then. I think there's a Looney Tunes short called Hollywood Steps Out, which is like a nightclub with like all like Hollywood celebrities from the time. Yeah, all the celebrities
caricatures of actual people.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
All of the celebrities are played by one guy in that short, and he was 17 years old. What
man?
Yeah,
and he probably made $50.
Oh well, it's funny because he was also I think he was the first voice of Henry Hawk before Mel took over, and he was the voice of Beaky Buzzard. The nope, nope. Like he was that. No. Yeah, it was like it's sad because I had found out. I think he died in like World War II. He was like 22 years old.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, and he had an amazing career for like 5 years from when he was like 17 years old. It was just incredible learning that. It was the same thing. Like it's nuts to see how young some people are when they start in the industry.
Yeah, and then I'm like the opposite. You know, because seriously, I tell people that all the time. It's like I didn't start acting till I was 40, so it's not too late.
Well, it's like now I call it the Newgrounds era because there was a website called Newgrounds where a lot of now current anime people got their start. And a lot of those people were starting out when they were like 15 years old.
Yeah, some of them.
Just from the internet.
Yeah, I've got a lot of friends that are old school Dragon Ball, you know, so they've been animating for a long time.
And I know a lot of those people like pulled double duty at Crunchyroll and Funimation. I think like a lot of those people would do engineering or ADR or script writing.
Yeah. I've got actor friends that are adaptive script writers or directors or both, you know, so, you know, it's all about, you know, making a living, so I've considered it. I'm not a bad writer. I'm pretty good with words, but I've never thought of adaptive script writing, even though I probably should. I might have, you know, more steady income.
I always find it crazy, those people that do like 4 or 5 things, because I think Colleen Klinkenbeard was one. I think she does like voice directing and editing and writing and voice acting.
She's pretty busy, yeah. There's a handful of cats there that are just, you know, they've got something going most of the time. You know, I'll see them walking around the halls down there. I'll be all like, "Oh, you practically live here." It's like, "Yeah, I've got an office and everything." Oh, okay.
Well, I know, like Chris Sabat's another one I know is like he does everything from everything I've ever known.
Well, you know, I think he still owns Okratron 5000, and there's an Okratron here in the Dallas area, and I think there's one in LA. So it's a studio. They stopped sending me auditions, come to think of it. Somehow I fell off the list. I need to get a hold of him. Actually, he's going to be he's going to be in Orlando this coming weekend, so I'll probably see him. I'll have to ask him. I'll be like, "Hey, man, how come your studio stopped sending me auditions for, video games?"
I thought we had something special, man. What happened?
Yeah, man. I know I never got a part in any of those mobile games, but, hey, I want to audition for them, They do. They seem like at the time, at least, they were doing a lot of those mobile games. Really over-the-top voice acting stuff.
Yeah, I think like Genshin Impact is, I know, like the big one that's been around for a few years.
Maybe I'm just not over the top for those. Maybe not enough. I don't know. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I just want to say thank you so much for coming on here.
Yeah, man.
I just want to say, is there any final words you would want to say for anyone that's interested in getting in the industry?
Oh. Mostly what I'd say right away when somebody asks that is, if you want to be a voice actor, first be an actor. Go do community theater. It doesn't cost nothing except for, transportation, but you learn to take direction and work with other actors and developing a character and acting. Because going behind the glass, to me, is more nerve-wracking than getting on stage in front of an audience. It just is. I don't know why. I've gotten used to it, so it doesn't really bother me anymore, but it's nerve-wracking to look through the glass at the director going, man, I hope I don't blow it, Whereas if you're in a play or a musical and you get out on that stage, you're either going to blow it or you're not, and there's no stopping it. There is no do-overs. You just got to keep going, which can sometimes be really crazy because there's been times where I've forgotten what I was supposed to say, and that's murder.
Oh, no, I did improv for a period of time.
Oh, man, yeah.
The first time I did that, I remember, I think it was like the first or second part I was in, and I just looked out at that crowd, and I just blanked on what to say.
It's like, yeah, well, you're just supposed to make it up. And it's like, yeah, but nothing's coming to mind. I never took any improv classes or anything, but, I've been at, like, cast parties for plays or whatever, and we would do some improv just off the cuff, out in the grass. Everybody's drinking and trying to do improv, and it was hilarious.